sorry to leave you waiting for a couple minutes. My name is Matt Kennedy. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Water Pollution Control Commission. And thank you for coming out to our Long Hill area public involvement program town meeting, I guess, or a community conversation that we're having this evening. And what I'd like to do is, for starters, introduce some of our folks here. Have our Chairman of the Water Pollution Control Commission, Hal Dolan, who's been on the commission for many years and has been a tireless volunteer here in the town of Clinton for, we'll say, several decades. And let's see, I've introduced myself. I have Omar Francis, my fellow commissioner, Chris Gelke, and we have a couple of consultants with us this evening. We have Christy Wagner from CDM Smith. She's our engineering consultant that's been working with us for quite a few years now. And Mary Jane Engel, who some of you may know, is a former health director and a consultant to CDM Smith, and has been an invaluable resource for us. So we also have our current health director of our local health district, CRAD, is Jim Monopoly, who's gracious enough to come out tonight and help us and be available afterwards to answer questions if you have any specific questions for any of us. Did I forget anybody? Sure. We have our Water Pollution Control Commission clerk, Shirley Mickens, is here tonight. She's the one who works most tirelessly on the work that we do, keeping all of us organized. So that's a rundown on who we have here tonight. Again, appreciate all you folks coming out, and I'd like to turn the floor over to my friend Chris Gelke here, and he's going to give you a little bit of rundown on our on the reason we're all here tonight. Thanks, Chris.
So again, just to reiterate what Matt said, we appreciate you coming out to listen to what we have to say. As a commission, we get together twice a month to try to figure out the town's wastewater issue, which is an enormous task. And so what we've decided to do is start breaking this into specific areas or neighborhoods, and hopefully answering some of the questions that only pertain to your neighborhood. Later on down the line, we'll talk about the town as a whole sometime in the summer, but at this point, we're just going to talk a little bit about the Long Hill area. As I'm guessing most of you know, the Department of Environmental and Energy Protection issued a consent order at some point to Clinton back in the 90s that said that the Clinton has to move towards solving some of their groundwater issues. Now, what are groundwater issues? It can be a number of things, from poor draining soils to homes living or located a little bit too close to waterways, to drinking water wells located too close to septics. It's a number of things. It's kind of a blanket statement. With the varying conditions found throughout Clinton, the task of solving the groundwater issues is pretty difficult. Okay? The problems in your area are completely different than, say, the Rocky Ledge area, and a little bit different than the shoreline area. So it's difficult for us as a commission of 7 members to come up with a solution that's going to work best for everybody and make everybody happy. The commission is made up of a solid mix of individuals in different sectors, from financial to environmental engineering. We have some construction folks on who weren't able to make it tonight, and the scientific sector. But none of us are septic experts. So as Matt mentioned, we brought on CDM Smith as our consultant to kind of go through the mountain of data that's been developed over the past 30 years about this issue, fill in the gaps where needed, and develop a comprehensive plan that's going to get us hopefully to the next level in a way that's fair to everybody. As Matt said, Mary Jane is also a subcontractor to CDM Smith. As many of you may know her, she's been instrumental in the town for a number of years, and she's helping CDM navigate Clinton and everything that we've done and the specifics of certain areas. Our job as a commission is to communicate to you what we're doing, what we'd like to do, but more importantly, hear from you about what you would like to see. You're the ones that live in these specific neighborhoods that have these problems. and we need to hear your voice to be able to make an informed decision. The flyer that you received, the public involvement program, is something new that we've been trying to do. And at the heart of that program is a realization by the Commission that our efforts are going to benefit greatly if we have input from you. And again, specifically from the neighborhoods that are going to be most impacted by the decisions that we have to make for you. We're working towards a common solution that everyone can get behind in some way or another. This is a pretty difficult task, again, because there's so many, there's some areas that have almost no issues with groundwater, there's other areas that have significant issues. So it's a tough thing to juggle, especially when DEEP has said that we have to do something, we have to move forward. So again, the public involvement program is something that started late last year. We got it kicked off a few weeks ago by meeting with the Rocky Ledge folks and talking to them specifically. And it really comes down to three main goals. Engage the people. And what we're asking you to do when we engage you is to assess the realities of your own lives and conditions so we can form a basis, plan of action moving forward that again is going to benefit everybody as a whole. Basically looking at what each of us can do to help ourselves and help the others in our community. This is an important point because there's areas of town that don't have an issue. And we will need to make that clear, develop an understanding so that they understand what we're trying to do moving forward. This is a community, this has been billed as a community problem, deep set the town of Clinton, not Long Hill folks. You have to deal with something. This is a town-wide issue. Solve the problem of limited knowledge and faulty assumptions. You guys are taking that step to come out and listen to what we have to say, and that's serving to solve the problem of the limited knowledge. I think too often in the past, the efforts by the previous commissions may not have reached everyone in an appropriate manner, and when you go to vote on this at referendum or maybe speak your voice, if you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, it's going to be difficult to create a clear picture. So we're trying to solve that right now. And develop a shared vision. Any solution that we ultimately come up with will have a better chance of being implemented if it's something that we all develop together. Okay? It shouldn't necessarily be our decision, the Commission's decision on its own, to come up with a plan that's going to affect you and you. It really we need to hear from you so we can develop this plan together. This is of course difficult because we have DEEP on one side saying that you have to do something, and we have to balance your needs against what DEEP is telling us we need to do. This has been a difficult task. Again, for several years, multiple decades, this has been tried in Clinton. So we're trying again and kind of redoubling our efforts. This public involvement program has a few parts. This is the first part, which is the initial meeting with specific neighborhoods, basically to alert you of what we're trying to do, what the plan is. Okay? As we move along with gathering more information from our consultant, we're going to hold a town-wide information session, probably sometime in the middle of the summer. Right now we're trying to work on the needs areas, the areas that DEEP identified as problem areas, and talking to those areas specifically. Once we get through that, then we'll hold a town-wide information session, again probably mid to late summer, where hopefully we can answer some of the questions that you may have tonight. As we move on from that, we'll have a second neighborhood meeting, again just with you folks and these other needs areas, and that's where we'll really detail some of the finer points of the facilities plan. The facilities plan is something that CDM Smith is developing and will have to us early summer. You're going to have questions tonight or between now and then, and we're going to look to answer those questions directly at that second meeting. It's going to be important for us to be able to answer those questions so you can make an informed decision when it comes to voting. And then of course we run to a town referendum at some point to vote on what we're trying to implement. So for your specific area, we have some ideas. You know, the fact is that in the Long Hill area, which is identified on one of the poster boards over there, the kind of peachy colored one, the red outline shows us what is considered in the Long Hill area. This area is kind of defined by some poor soils, some ledge, some boulder outcroppings, which make it difficult for some septic systems to work properly. Now, again, this problem has been around for some time, and all these studies are kind of proof of that. The conditions present in a majority of your area pose a difficult challenge for some septic systems. Even the newer systems with some of the innovative leaching systems can't fully address this because they serve to maximize leaching area per square foot and not necessarily how that effluent is handled. Okay, so we still have water going into the ground, and if you have poor drainage or rocks or a ledge, you're still going to have wastewater issues. Okay? We're proposing to solve the problem in your area with a community septic system. Okay? This is just in the Long Hill area where we would be sewering and treating, correct? Yeah. Treating and disposing all in that general area. Now this is different than what has been proposed in the past, which I think some people refer to it as the big pipe solution, where we sewer the whole town and run it out to the sound or a river or treat it at some point. That's kind of a waste because not everywhere in the town needs septic or a sewer, and you know, the cost associated with that would be something that I don't think any of us want to deal with. So, you know, as we go through this, there's really three main questions that are going to be asked, and I'll address two of them here in a moment. But the first one is, will you have to connect if the septic or sewer runs past your house? And this is especially true if you have what you feel to be an operating system, where you do have an operating system and you have no issues. Do you have to connect? This, right now, is in the Commission's wheelhouse. We're reviewing it. We're trying to understand some of the information that our consultant has provided us. At this point, we can't say yes or no, but we can offer that it may be possible to opt out of connecting to these sewers, provided that you can demonstrate that you have a system that is code compliant and functioning properly. Okay, we're not closing the door on all of this. We're not going to make you do something if you don't have to do this. And you know, this is where we need to hear from you. Okay, we've been told this whole area has an issue, and we need feedback from you. You know, let us know you have a septic system that works beautifully and has for 20 or 30 years. And these are the things that we need to know so we can refine our approach going forward. Now, again, we know you've been here before. I'd imagine that most of you have heard the Commission's speech in the past about what's going to be done to rectify any of the issues in your area, and how is it different what we're doing right now? What's different? You know, at this point, there's really two things that are different. The first being we're looking at a very localized system for the Long Hill area only. And I should mention that other areas of town are also going to receive hybrid systems where maybe there's areas that are sewered or other areas that are just getting clean water to address some of their issues. Okay, so it's not just Long Hill getting a septic or a sewer and that's it. Okay? We're looking at detailing what's needed and only providing what's needed and not trying to go beyond that. That's going to help us reduce some of these costs that we're going to be facing as time goes on. The other thing that we're doing different is this right here tonight, is we're trying to inform you and hear what you have to say. Because, you know, I'd like to say that we're trying to educate you but inform us. Okay? Again, we have a difficult task, and it's going to help if you tell us, good or bad, that you like your plan, you hate our plan. It's going to help us any way you slice it. So, I said there was three major questions. The first one was, will you have to connect? The other one is cost. What is it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? We don't know yet. We don't know yet because we don't have the facilities plan that's going to detail this very localized approach to your area. Okay? When we get to that second meeting that I mentioned, which will happen in the fall, that's the meeting where we're going to talk about cost and how this is going to get paid for. Now, our consultants were looking into state and federal grants, low interest loans, whatever we can to help offset some of these costs. But unfortunately right now, we don't have a number that we're even willing to offer because it's just not active. And we don't want to go there just yet. So, sorry about that. You know, this is a short presentation. I'm almost done. What we're going to end up doing, and again, we want your thoughts. There's cards that are on the table if you have a question. If you want a specific answer, you know, put a contact, put a phone number, an email, and we'll get back to you with a specific answer. We're going to open this up in a couple minutes to kind of have a discussion, question and answer with our consultant. And after that, they're going to be over at the poster board, so we encourage you to go talk to them and ask them anything you want. And what's going to happen is we have a nice recording of all these questions, and we're going to develop a database of what's been asked, and we're going to respond to each and every one of those questions. If we can't do it right now, we will do it by that second meeting. Okay? And any question that happens to be developed tonight that's kind of similar to some of the other areas, i.e. cost or will I have to connect and those kind of things, I hope to have those available in a more public way in, say, a newspaper article or a social media website, or at the very minimum at the town meeting in June. Okay? So we're going to try to work hard to answer everything that any questions you have, and try to address any concerns that are really troubling you about what were proposed, what's happened in the past, or what hasn't happened in the past. Okay? So this is a pretty short presentation at this point, again, just to introduce the public involvement program, give you an idea of what we're looking to do in your area, which again is the very localized sewer system, all taken care of and treated in your area, done to minimize the cost. And with that, I think we're going to turn it over to Matt and Christy to field some of your questions. And again, afterwards, please use the cards, talk to us wherever you see us, and ask us how things are going. So, thank you for your time. Matt, he's going to take it.
Chris, thank you very much for giving such a rundown for the folks. I know it's not easy. It's a lot for us to take in as volunteers, and we have to learn how to speak engineering language. But yeah, if anything came to mind while Chris was speaking, or if you came with a specific question in mind this evening, we'll try to work our way around the group, and whoever can best answer it, we'll try to answer it, and then we'll break up into kind of smaller groups around the boards, and just you can talk to any of us commission members, as Chris said. Gentleman in the back, first hand up.
Bristol 98 Long Hill Road. Last couple of years, it was talked about as far as the community solution, the neighborhood solution, what have you. As far as the solution would be keep septic and then have the effluent be. Now, I believe it was last fall in the meeting that the video was posted, supposedly that was gone away from as a solution. Do we know where we stand at this point?
No, I can tell you that regardless of, what you're getting at is really the difference between a conventional sewer system versus a step system.
Well, whether we have the actual septic,
Right,
and then the leaching is actually the pipe.
Correct. So the difference is a conventional sewer system would take all of the waste away from your home, treat it all, and then in this case dispose of it by groundwater recharge in one of our identified groundwater recharge sites. A step system, septic tank effluent pumping, leaves the tank on your property, leaves the solids on your property to be pumped and managed, and only takes the effluent away. We are actually still weighing the pros and cons of those things because it's going to come down to cost and a few construction considerations. Basically, the pros are a septic tank effluent pumping system. The pipe in the street gets installed a little shallower and is a little smaller. But you still need a treatment facility, and then the homeowner still has to deal with your septic tank, probably have to replace them. There's still a lot of burden on the homeowner. A conventional system, most of that burden is taken off of the homeowner and put into the community system. So at this point, I can't say either one is off the table because it's really going to come down to cost, and that's kind of one of the last things that we have to iron out at this point. So
It
yeah,
just seemed like the shift was already in the process of being made away from the
At that time, I
Okay.
can tell you my honest opinion was that we hadn't looked that closely at the step systems because we had some prior feedback that they weren't popular. What we decided to do at that time was to go back and look at them both objectively, and that's still in process. So yeah, I can't give you that answer, but I can tell you that both are being considered, and the goal is to do what's most economical.
And that'll be something that it should be established by the summer?
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
whatever.
It's really one of the last. I know it sounds like a big question, and it is, but it's actually not. Now that we know the areas that need to go off-site and we're developing where they have to go, answering that question isn't that hard anymore. So we are getting to that
Right, and that's
point.
why I figured
Yeah.
it wasn't too specific to ask.
Right, no, it's a fair question. I wish I had an answer, but yeah, as Chris said, there are still a lot of things. What I would like to know, and not to throw a question back at you, we are interested in knowing public sentiment about something like that. How do people feel about having to potentially upgrade your tank, or replace your tank, and have a pump on your property rather than a gravity system? Public input, as Chris mentioned and Matt mentioned, we are going to look at the cost, but if we have a really strong feeling that people really don't want that, or that people really would like that, that should weigh into the decision as well. We're trying to get, to make decisions that people will get behind. So I think people should be free to voice your opinion on what you would feel about
Are you
this.
asking me now?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I really didn't have any
If that's
problem
okay.
until the town started getting involved in it 10 years ago. At some point, yes, I will have to replace my septic, my tank anyway. It's probably 30 years old now. Obviously, it still works, but my leaching fields are probably a lot closer to being replaced again. I really have no problem. I think it's going to boil down to, for the most part, with a lot of people, the relative cost.
Okay, that's our primary consideration, yeah.
I mean, obviously, if one is completely exorbitant, then you fall in love a whole lot easier with the other solution. I have no real preference. I have no problem with maintaining the septic tank on a regular basis. I have done it for the 30 years I've lived in my house. So
it'll come down to the dollars for you. That's good. That's good to know because that would be our primary concern.
dollars as well as overall solution.
East Haddam has a step system where the town supplied the pump to take the product from the septic tank, pumped to a treatment plant. So, and in the 80s, that type of system was proposed to the town. And it was turned down completely. The town didn't want us to do anything at that time.
Right.
And it was a big numbers, like 800 and some odd people didn't want to do anything. 200 said, yeah, let's do it, so.
I remember.
So that's some of where our prior position has been, just not really looking at it, but after hearing the comments at over the last year or so, it's still on the table, and like I said, I think at this point that decision would come down to
Do
cost.
more want to have nothing to do with it as far as let it be the town's problem?
Well, I think that's what we would want to know. I mean, that it is true. I think a lot of people, knowing that they would end up with a tank that they still have to pump, and a grinder pump that has to be connected to their electrical panel, maybe requiring an electrical upgrade. There are drawbacks. Not saying that there aren't also benefits, but it doesn't actually get rid of the treatment. You still need a treatment facility because what you're pumping is still septic tank effluent. It's not treated, and in order to have a community system that DEP would permit and approve, we still will need to treat that effluent. So it's not like you even get rid of the treatment plant. So those are the things that have to be costed at this point. Does that help make
Thank
sense? Okay.
All right, gentleman right here. Hi.
I live on Bright Hill in a cul-de-sac. Been there 45 years, and I don't have any problem. But this discussion sort of leaves me at odds, thinking Bright Hill has city water, so we don't have any problem getting water regardless of weather. But if we lose electricity, does that mean we have to be out of our house because the septic system won't work anymore?
If you have a pump, if you had a grinder pump, your pump would go down during that time. So it would be similar to if you had a well, you would lose the ability to really
Well,
use
we
your
don't.
water. Right, I understand. I'm saying that that's another consideration on the homeowner. If we end up with a system that has a pump, if you have a generator and you put your pump on the generator, no, you lose the ability to dispose of your wastewater when you lose power. So it is a negative.
So the converse would be if we did have this community system that was mostly gravity, you wouldn't have that problem because there would be a centralized pumping facility that had backup power, so
I'm
that.
just saying you're raising a situation that could bring renters or people out of their homes.
Right.
Correct. Or at least very inconvenient. certainly, yeah.
If that one type of system was chosen, yeah.
Right. The other thing that I'll say as a caveat to that, given the topography of the Long Hill area, regardless of which system we choose, there might still be some homes that need a pump because they have to get up and over the hill to the gravity system. We're looking into alternatives to minimize that, but I can't promise at this point, since it hasn't been laid out. One option, the step option, has basically everybody having a pump. The gravity option might still have 20 people having a pump, and that's not uncommon in sewer systems, but it's a consideration.
Two questions. First one, is there any plan to handle discharge from sump pumps from basements?
Let's see, that, we have not been charged with that as of yet. I know the health district may have rules on that, but that's not part of what DEP has charged us with.
Okay.
But what specifically?
Well, because obviously what happens is some people discharge it into the street, whether it's legally or whether it's legal or not legal. For a lot of people are discharging that into their lawn, okay?
Sure.
So now that also has a direct effect on the operation of the septic system.
Sure.
So we get some heavy rain up there for a few days, or late winter, early spring, and forget it. Everybody's got a pond in their backyard, probably regardless. There's just no place for the water to go.
Is shallow depth of groundwater, shallow depth of bedrock, and where does the water go?
Right.
That's one of our biggest problems right now. We even have, we have areas around town where we monitor surface water flow. So you get those types of problems at the top of the hill. It's got to go somewhere. It runs out of yards. Some of it runs along the curb down to catch basins. And we've routinely, as part of a monitoring program, test those catch basins. And those catch basins have coliform bacteria in them. And it seems pretty obvious to the commission that, we're getting septic breakout that's being part of those ponds in our backyards where our pets are playing, where we're walking to get to our cars, all of that type of stuff that is actually, causing a serious health concern and potentially, it all flows to the sea. So it all has the potential to impact, one of the beautiful things we have in this town. One of the reasons we live here and not somewhere else is because we're on Long Island Sound. So that's what we need to hear. We need to hear from people who say, this is how bad it is. And we need to hear from people who say, I don't want any part of that because I don't have a problem. But we need to hear those types of things, and we hear it a lot. We get calls to the land use office. We have people come to our meetings twice a month and tell us there's different clusters around town where people are really hurting. They're pumping out, businesses are pumping out weekly, homes are pumping out every couple months, and that's the type of information we need to hear because it'll, make things easier for us. I didn't mean to make that so long-winded. But.
Just take a walk around the neighborhood. My name is Dennis Slam, by the way. I live on Furridge Road. My parents built the house there, and I bought it from them. Long story. But after a good rain, just walk around the neighborhood. Every other house has a hose going out either into the lawn or into the street. And if it's out into the lawn, chances are it's also flowing into somebody else's backyard. It's just that's.
I was going to even suggest Mary Jane talk about that previous, the health district did that previous inspection of 340-something homes
That was
That was before the health district.
And it was a 2003 walkover, that's not what I was going to talk about. The
It just came to
2003
mind when
No,
I mentioned
it's a good, it emphasizes your problem. In 2003, I'm sure a lot of people probably remember, it was just a non-invasive visual site inspection that an engineer formerly with my firm did at that time, and it was really just looking for visual signs of problems, and one of them was water ponding. And it was done in June, when actually groundwater that year, I checked it, was not as low as it sometimes can be in June, but it wasn't certainly a seasonal high, so it could be worse at times.
Sure.
There was a lot of ponding, not necessarily on every property, but in every general area, on almost every street. That was one of the things that was noticed and noted in a symptom of the overall poorly draining soils. The other thing I was going to say, if I may, just to try to answer your question on the sump pumps, and it's not a definitive answer, but what happens, I can tell you commonly in sewer systems throughout the state, things like sump pump discharges are prohibited because it essentially can double, triple, quadruple the flow in the pipe and at the plant. So you literally have to, in older systems it's a big problem because you have pipes that weren't sized for it and they get overwhelmed and you have sewer overflows. And in newer systems, if the commission decided they wanted to design for that and allow that, you'd end up with a bigger, more expensive pipe and a bigger, more expensive plant. So that honestly hasn't come up as a question in the commission, but I can tell you that would be there. I know it would help each individual homeowner to get the water off their property.
Absolutely.
I get that, but it's not just a matter of just letting everyone hook up. We'd have to figure out what that peak flow would be because it's all going to come at the same time. So it becomes a pretty big impact.
Sure.
So
Sure.
anyway.
And just one other question, just out of curiosity, what is the percentage of people that are normally not within compliance of maintaining their septic systems in town? Is there any figures?
Do you have any figures, Shirley, by any chance, as far as where we stand right now with the pump out ordinance? As most of you know, we have a pump out ordinance, which is a part of this whole dealing with the wastewater issue, where you have to pump out your septics once every 5
I
years.
don't believe we have an accurate number, of those that are in compliance versus those
A
that
lot
aren't.
are coming up to now. I've gone through the whole town once, and so far, some people I can't find, like, they don't answer the letters and things like that, and I really can't find them. There's houses in foreclosures, so I would say that 90% of the homes are done.
In terms of pumping out,
Yes.
doesn't mean that they have code compliance systems,
Right.
right? That's different.
That's one,
So I'm not sure we're.
one piece of the puzzle, yeah. There,
Oh, hi, I'm on Fernwood Lane. I'm not in the problem area, I'm in the proposed solution area. So my questions come from a district perspective. You had indicated you're looking for a proposed community solution, treating and disposing in the same area. The problem area on Long Hill, where you list the problems, the treatment areas aren't in fact in those areas, correct? They're outside those boundary areas.
Outside of the boundary, correct, in the
Of
same
Long
general
Hill.
vicinity,
Okay,
but you're right.
So it's not within that community, it's outside.
Local to it, but yes, you're correct. Within the boundaries, all of those parcels are
Okay.
problematic, yes.
One would be down near the school area,
That's
and one would be in the Lake Laconia area, correct?
correct.
Some of the proposed ones. All right, has notice been sent to any of the residents of the solution area for their input? If not, I would propose that you do that as well. You not only want to solicit the opinions of the people in the problem areas,
sure.
but for the people in the solution areas that gets the impact.
That's a good thought.
So I would
It's a good thought,
recommend
thank
that as well. Now, here's my question. You would be proposing those areas to discharge approximately 75,000 gallons. And the actual treatment would be south of 95?
Most likely, that's another question that we're actively working on now to identify plant sites.
Okay, it was my understanding from your last meeting that the proposed treatment site would be south of 95, and then from that point, then the water would be pumped up north of 95 to be discharged on one of the proposed sites.
That's still a fair statement. I think the caveat that I should have said is that we don't have a site identified. I think south of 95, the grade is a little bit lower, so topography-wise, most of the flow can make it there. but we have not identified an actual plant site yet.
Okay, so here's my question. To the extent that the proposed solution sites are outside of the problem area, why has the Class B Hammonasset been taken off the table when one of your proposed sites is the Class A Monunkatuck watershed area, but yet the Class B Hammonasset River has been taken off the table? My question is why, and why isn't it put back on?
There's a bunch of answers there. There was very strong town sentiment, from what I understand, against that. I was fairly new to town at the time, about using the Hammonasset River. If you look at the maps, you'll see that our zones are kind of spread out all over the town, and this idea of doing groundwater recharge was more popular. It was supported by the DEP, and it provides that the wastewater gets treated, and then treated wastewater, which is, you know, I hate to say this being a scientist, but it's treated almost to the level of our groundwater, the way it is now, our natural state, is discharged back into the groundwater. Much different than having, you know, septic lagoons or even having the systems in our backyard. That would allow us to take an area like a couple of the areas you mentioned and, you know, almost imperceptibly be pumping treated water underground and have it naturally recharge into the groundwater table. So there wouldn't be a really visible, you know, giant sewer treatment plant or big, you know, lagoons like you'd see if you grew up in a, you know, a city like I did. So it creates an opportunity to be in a sort of sensitive area out there, a beautiful area, but also have a co-use type environment. I don't know, I think you were talking with Hal about some of the photos over there.
Just for the record, there was never a public townwide vote
on that Hammonasset
on the Hammonasset. It was taken off arbitrarily by a few.
The selectmen had a resolution that not to use the Hammonasset River or any of the rivers in Clinton.
But we're using the Monunkatuck.
We're not using the Monunkatuck.
Yeah, that's a geology question. You
Okay,
wanna check?
I would just state for the people in the proposed solution site that Hammonasset has been arbitrarily taken off the table, and if you want people to come behind your plan, then all possible solutions should be considered and put on the table, and that means economically, do an economic study as well on the Hammonasset, so that the town is given a proper choice as to the best economics on where to treat, particularly since your treatment sites, your solution sites, are off-premise to the problem sites. Now, having said that, I would like to thank the commission for all their hard work. I think you've done a lot of hard work as volunteers for the town. I'm just suggesting things from the proposed solution site owners. And again, there's a lot more of that sentiment, but they've never received notice to come before you to give their opinions, and I would appreciate it if that be done.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of work to do too, though, to educate folks on what exactly are we talking about here. Because most of us know is that we have a septic tank in our backyard. We know generally how it works, and we know how to maintain it to keep it working, and we know the cost if you've had to have these major repairs and how painful that can be. But we don't know a lot about this type of system that the commission and our engineers is proposing, and how there's an economy of scale involved with it, and how there's, you know, less impact, and, you know, a bunch of different things that are more innovative than what's probably been pitched to the town before.
Okay, I have one last question.
Sure, go ahead.
The proposed solution sites, once established, will it solely be for the Long Hill area? Or, once established, if it's determined to have more volume capacity, will it be expanded for use for the whole town in all the problem areas? Is that left open?
I'd have to say that has to be left open at this point.
Left open? Okay, so if the Long Hill area agrees to accept one proposed treatment site as opposed to the Hammonasset, they could be accepting the entire site for the entire town at some stage. There's no limit to it.
And what do you see as the difference, just so I can understand? What would be the difference if 50,000 gallons versus, or 75,000 versus 100,000, what
Well,
would be the
it's
perceived
my
difference?
understanding that with regard to the current proposed discharge, that would be right next to the Lake Laconia, which would flow down the Hammonasset through the National Wildlife Refuge.
The Mononcatissa.
Mononcatissa, I'm sorry. It's my understanding that right now, in order to discharge, you need to get certain exceptions from the DEP.
Yeah, I think there might be some misinformation there, a couple of things, because there wouldn't be any surface water discharges.
No.
Yeah,
Groundwater.
there'd
But
be-
the distance needed to discharge in.
Yeah, I don't think that's exactly the case.
Right. We're not that far into the actual permitting with the DEP, but we're not really looking for exceptions at this point. I think what you're referring to is probably the travel time question, which has come up before, which is
That's right.
basically a buffer distance on any of the disposal sites before the discharge would hit the property line. The problem there is that conversation is open with DEP, but I don't even think I would call it an exception, because that 21-day travel time is a rule that was developed for septic systems, not for treated, post-treated effluent. So
Actual
that
sewage
and the problem is there are no published regulations that are blanket regulations for effluent discharge into groundwater. It's site-by-site, case-specific. So we are not looking for any exceptions to DEP requirements for any of these discharges at this point.
If there were any exceptions requested, it would just be to make this more efficient. It wouldn't be to make it work in the first place. It would be it'd be based on science that, okay, that distance isn't necessary. You're unnecessarily constricting how we can construct this system in the most efficient manner possible. That's more likely what it would be versus us needing some exception towards laws that are made to protect that valuable resource. But I got to make sure everybody gets a chance to ask a question, and we can talk more afterward. Right? Any other folks have any questions you'd like to fire past us? Mr. Murray?
Hi, Fran Murray. I live on Twin Oaks Lane, which is conspicuously right outside of the Long Hill area. You talked before about what those areas are. Who defines those areas specifically? And, is there a chance that in 3 years, my road is now inside the area instead of outside the area? And you were talking before about, you have this notion of opting out, and if you wanted to opt out, you may have to prove that your system works. Who do you have to get to prove that for you? Because as far as I know, my neighborhood is relatively new. It's only about 15 years old. So is that the reason it's not in the box? And if it had been 30 years old, then it would have been in the box?
So those are all
Am I
excellent
going to have a
questions.
problem in 10 years?
Probably what, about 3 questions there? I think that wasn't the deal, Fran. But I don't know, where should we start with that, folks? I mean, as far as areas that are outside of that polygon, what do you think is the best way to address that?
Well, it is I think you're correct, it's a newer neighborhood, and the lots are bigger than the lots, typically the lots in Long Hill. So I think you hit the nail on the head as to why you were excluded, your area was excluded. I think that the boundaries are set now, nothing's ever set in concrete, and if down the road there were a reason, problems were discovered, or you as homeowners let us know that you're having difficulty or interested, then the commission is always able to rethink those boundaries. But you are correct as to why Twin Oaks is not in the needs area, the Long Hill needs area currently. Did I answer all his questions?
No, determining the opt-out, the inspection, and determining if you have a working system, those specifics are going to be developed when we figure out who's going to, the parameters of opt-in or opt-out of the septic system. There's going to be an inspection. When we say prove, it's more about us understanding what you have. If there's as-built available, it may be an inspection program, something as simple as a certified pumper coming in and looking at your system and saying, it works. We don't know yet exactly what that list will be, but there will be some a mechanism to inspect and say that your system is working properly and you're okay to opt out. And that's, again, going to be coming as we get further into the design and review process.
One of our biggest challenges, you know, we're not in the design phase, you know, we're in this facilities planning phase. And what facilities planning means, doing an enormous amount of due diligence to look at, you know, all of the problems, all the potential solutions, and you know, prioritizing all these things and opening up a dialogue, and then you know, working with technical folks who have this expertise on figuring out what's the, you know, what are the most viable solutions. And through that process, you know, and all the years of those reports, a bunch of these areas overwhelmingly were identified as, you know, having problem after problem after problem, and really causing a lot of trouble for the folks who live there. So, you know, for all we know right now, we're considering these are areas that are going to be sewered, and any exceptions would be developed down the road for parcel by parcel exceptions. That's probably the most straightforward answer I could give for that. I hope that's acceptable. Yes, sir.
I know you said you're not in the design phase yet, but have you looked at the need for multiple pump stations around this area to be able to carry through your sewer system?
Go right back to our PE.
Right, yeah, that's something we're getting into now as we start to do the cost estimating and laying out a preliminary system, and that's what I referred to before with there may still be the ends of some streets where the grade goes down, where it might be a pump station or it might be a handful of grinder pumps that are needed to get that flow up over a hill.
Right, but a grinder pump is not going to carry you through much elevation. You'd almost have to, I live on Nutmeg,
Okay.
and there's definitely a low-lying area down there. I'm in the middle of the road, so I'm halfway up. But the elevation there, as far as my knowledge, you're not going to carry that with a chopper pump.
We haven't looked at it in close detail yet. I'm aware of some pretty good head on some of the grinder pumps, but there's also, you know, we have to find some balance between constructing some deep gravity sewers, which is more costly, but would leave fewer people without pumps, or more people without pumps, sorry.
Less moving parts.
Right, less moving parts, yes. Yeah, so I think to, you know, cost those options is still out there as a question.
I know they've talked in the past about pumping out of the sewage system down the street and then a pump station carrying it back up to Long Hill.
Yeah, so I think what that might be referring to is, so here's the simplest way would be to get as much as possible to our treatment facility by gravity. Maybe some grinder pumps or a couple of small pump stations. I know people don't like to hear that. We're going to do the best we can to avoid them. After treatment, it will have to be pumped one time. All of the flow will have to be pumped up to the effluent groundwater recharge site. So if you hear about, you know, multiple pumping, that's probably what you're referring to, what people are referring to. Does that make sense? Is that?
It does, just from where I'm asking the question.
Yes, there's essentially not a solution for Nutmeg as of yet. We're getting together the big solution and then have to start winnowing down those details so we can present the elephant. Yeah. Sir?
Yes. Are you coordinating with the town next to us and in relation to the nature preserve that's surrounding Chapman Mill Pond?
There's been no direct coordination other than through the DEP. We've been working closely with the DEP throughout this entire process, and DEP has been receptive to this idea as being protective to the environment, overwhelmingly protective to the environment and an improvement to the environment in this whole area. But we have not to yet have met with any officials or other than just interest groups like yourselves, folks that have come out and talked to us. Yes, sir.
Ron Clemens, Jefferson Circle. Well, we are fortunate enough to be on the high part of the road. We're like at the top of the hill, so we haven't had any problems at all in our area. But I know that down the street near the corner of Alden Drive and Jefferson Circle, it's a low part there.
Okay.
There's a storm drain there. It's crumbling, and the roadbed's actually crumbling into the storm drain. And a similar spot is over on the low side of Jefferson Circle, or I guess it'd be the north side of Jefferson Circle, there's a low spot. And what is being done to address those problems as part of the assessment? Maybe this is causing a lot of the issues, is what I'm thinking.
Just dealing with the water in general.
Just
right?
dealing with this runoff.
So probably the best way to answer that, I think, would be for you to write that down on a card so that we can give it some thought. Because that's, you know, as Chris pointed out, the whole idea tonight was to get together with you folks, hear some of these ideas, give you a simple presentation, and be available to answer your questions to help us, you know, through this process. But thank you very much. That is an excellent question. And you have a second question.
Well, my wife had the other question.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't want to speak. So.
No, don't worry about me.
Sure.
The other thing that is happening on Jefferson Circle is it seems like the stormwater runoff that goes into the drains,
Yeah.
it never completely drains.
Sure.
I walk,
Yeah.
and I can hear the water running in them
Mhm.
constantly. There's one, I don't know the house numbers, but there's two.
Hmm.
They never drain completely. I mean, we have one in front of our house. If I go out and look in it,
Water's flowing.
it's sitting there.
Oh, really?
It's just sitting there.
Oh, I mean, there's a few things that could be going on there, but that's, you know, again.
I don't know if
good
that's a
point.
maintenance thing. Do they clean them?
I think the problem is catch basins are usually designed to have a basin in them that catches, you know, the sand. And then the water should keep running till it gets to its discharge point. What's our biggest problem up here? Shallow depth of groundwater and shallow depth to bedrock. So what we end up with, probably with drains like that, is it's just draining shallow groundwater.
There's no
It's a
place
very-
for the water to go.
A very good chance that that's the
It
case.
gets trapped.
Yeah.
Right.
So we don't want to keep you guys here too late tonight, and we do want to have an opportunity.
I had
You
a
have another one?
Yeah, I had a second
Sure,
question.
go right ahead.
if you Excuse me. Going back to this about the ordinance for the septic pump out. Now, as I recall, we've been living in Clinton a while. This was only enacted about 2 years ago. And what I read when it came out is they expected to be pumped out every 2 years, not 5 years as you stated. So,
Hal could probably speak to the particulars of the ordinance.
The ordinance is 5 years.
oh, so, but my question is, I guess, in relation to that, since it's only been 2 years since it was enacted, how can you make an assessment of whether it's making any improvement or not unless you give it some additional time and actually make sure it's being enforced and see if there's any improvement from that?
That is a parallel track we were taking. It is a monumental task. It is not going to solve the town's wastewater issues, unfortunately, but it is a huge part.
Some of it, though.
It is a huge part of what
Right.
we do. It does many things. It enables us to gather information on systems that are having a real hard time. It enables us to, you know, have a dialogue with folks, because folks who are having to have it done more often, we're getting in touch with. It is a huge part of what we're doing, but it's not something that is going to have a necessarily, you know, a long-term solution of the existing problems. It may not even solve the future problems, but it will definitely be important to keep the good systems working well.
The good systems working well.
yeah.
That's the key.
So that's the best we can say about our pump out ordinance. Has many reasons to have it, but that's the thing we
I'm
can
for
hold.
it, and I can tell you that there's a lot of people in our neighborhood that are not compliant with it, so.
Well, we're getting there. It is huge. If anybody wants to come and volunteer and help, you know, help Shirley get all this stuff out to everybody, it is a difficult process that we've set in motion with that ordinance, because that ordinance involves fines, involves actions. You know, we have to have an appeals board now because there's different hardships we have to hear. You know, it's become very complicated. Gentleman in the back.
Just sort of general question. I've lived in town for 20 years, and this was an old conversation when I moved here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, you know, it's nice to hear that we're working clearly, making great strides towards a solution, and I'd love to see a solution. Just curious as to your expected time frame for a presentation of a plan.
excellent question.
Later this year, the plan should be in its final stages of getting approvals. So, you know, by the summer, I think a lot of the questions that were asked here tonight, including costs, should be available. But we were trying to make sure we capture everyone's input and questions and thoughts as we try to finalize it.
There's a whole process here. You hear this facilities planning, and it's been going on for several years, and then we get to a point where this reaches a certain mass where we need to get the DEP's approval, we need to take all the input that we've got and use that to help prioritize all of the different, cost-benefit analysis and all the different options we've looked at. But yeah, this is the time. You're looking at 2015, 2016, getting a lot of answers, where in the past it was always, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. Well, no, your Long Hill, we already have on our calendar to get back to Long Hill, so we will have more news this summer.
So, okay, so.
We have a draft plan right now that each of the commission members is looking at.
You're talking about implementing, I think you might be asking about implementing now. You're talking about when you might actually see construction of something?
Yeah,
Is that what you're-
you present a plan, you will present a plan or come together with the best solution, and then, when would that implementation actually occur?
So it would be a few years. So here's the general overview. DEP and DPH and CRAD need to weigh in and approve the plan. Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and then ultimately there's a town meeting and likely a referendum, or more than one referendum, depending on how the project is broken up. Then next comes a preliminary design phase and a design phase, which is going to be another couple years before you get to construction. So any structural solution that is proposed is still 3 to 5 years away, I think, and that's assuming that actually things get approved. That's where the hurdles have been before in decades past, which is why we're trying to do a better job of outreach this time to find out where the questions are and where the opposition might be.
Because, majority of us here, outside of Christy and Shirley, we live here in town. We deal with paying taxes here in town. We're volunteering our time to try to figure these things out as trying to give back to our town. So we're in it with you, and we need you guys to be our foot soldiers. We need everyone in town to participate in one way or another, either giving us feedback, telling us we're doing a terrible job, or saying this is what's important to me. And then eventually, hopefully gather enough mass where this thing can pass. So all this money that the town has spent over 30 years of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars over and over again can actually create something that benefits this town. So hopefully a few years, but with a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, the Jefferson area, largely they're 50-year-old homes, mid-60s, and
a lot of folks are coming up on $10,000, $20,000 repairs.
Yeah, and that's
scary stuff.
Something's got to. What am I going to do? Do I spend the money now? Do I wait, or what do I do? When do I do it? It's now. It's right over here over my shoulder. What
if
do
you
I
could
do?
write it down so that it's right in our face, and we have to keep thinking about that, because we're going to have to work with the health district, and as this gets closer and closer, we're going to have to make sure people are doing things that make sense for themselves and financially. We have a real organized health district now, so we're lucky to have that on our side. Any other folks? Again, didn't want to keep you out all night, but we definitely would like you to get a chance to mull around. You can ask any of us questions individually, or
Matt, I'd like just to point out on any questions that you write down on cards that are handed us tonight, we plan to be answering those the best we can, and they'll be available in our minutes in the next couple weeks, which will be available on the town site. And again, if you left a specific contact information, we'll get back to you that way as well. So
we're going to try to use the town website. We've been using, you've probably read stuff in the newspaper and the Clinton events. As this thing starts gathering a little more mass, we're going to try to get ourselves covered by the newspaper on a regular basis, just so that everyone can be hearing the same story. That's the best thing that could happen in a small town. We've learned that throughout the years. If there's 10 stories out there, there's going to be a bunch of people who are mad at each other. We want there to be, all the questions come in, come up with the most technical sound answers, and then publish them in a way that everybody can get the news out. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Matt, do you have a place where FAQs, there's an FAQ site that people could go to see what questions have been asked and how they've been answered?
That's great, Kirk. Not quite formally organized.
No, at this point, no, but that's something that has been in the mix as part of the public involvement program, is we need to further develop a way to keep track of these questions through a database, which I think I mentioned earlier, and then have them readily accessible. So that's something we will be looking into.
So I know we can't speak for the folks who aren't here tonight, but I mean, what do you folks think? What's the best way to get information to you and to answer your questions? And to, you know, sometimes I'll tell somebody email and they'll say email. I don't care about email. Or I'll say social media and they'll say social media, what's that? You know, other people like me, you know, I like when I get a text telling me that my kid doesn't have to go to school tomorrow because it's snowing. And now I need to scamper and figure out how I'm going to do my job and get my kid somewhere. You know, that's how I like to get my notices. How do you folks like to get information? What are some of your preferred methods, sir?
A website.
A website.
Useful, specific to the subject.
Okay, we're going to make this a lot easier for you to find the water pollution control portion of the town's website. We're going to make that a #1 goal. Sir?
And make sure that there's a link to it right off the town website.
Yeah, it is.
It's like 3 clicks.
Yeah, it's a few clicks. You go into departments, you go into land use, and water pollution control is right in there.
Yeah.
But so that'll be where it is. But we'll hijack the front page of the town's.
But we have your
webpage.
emails here.
And we have your information also.
There is sometimes a problem with me getting information on the website.
We are a small town, and our website is not
The
Google.
website is being redesigned now.
Yeah.
Matt, if you'd like a tab on ClintonRSVP.com, I could add it to Clinton RSVP. I don't know how familiar you are with that site, but
Well, it's going to take groups on all sides of the table and all over town in order to get this common message out. So that's great. Thank you.
okay.
Any other folks getting information? How do you want to get information?
I was going to say, I'm not much for social media per se.
Okay.
But the website is full, meaning you go look for it. It'd be much better to push it to people than have them go looking for it. So I found the notice for this meeting in the Harbor News.
Okay.
That was much better than
Great.
bearing in a website that I won't go looking for unless I need to do so.
Okay, excellent.
So push the information out would be better than having people have to go look for it.
Got that? Can you go down, somebody? Yep, that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, the parents that are going to come to every open house are going to come to every open house. It's the people that you're trying to reach.
It's the rest of us.
The U.S. mail goes to your home. You know, and that we got a notice in the mail. That's
Well, I'm glad it worked.
You know, that's
It seems
why.
like it worked pretty well.
And so I think, you know, it may even take, if you're really looking to reach everyone, knocking on doors, you know.
Putting flyers in mailboxes, that would be a volunteer.
I mean, say just for instance, if Mr. Murray had any children who wanted to volunteer, you know, as a service project, he's not listening, but yeah, we're gonna need all that effort.
You might need, I mean, that's manpower, obviously, and.
We're a small town, so
But that's how things get
talking
done.
to neighbors.
In the small towns, that's how things
Maybe
get done.
meeting in homes in your guys' neighborhoods, if that makes it easier, if you can run over to one neighbor's house for an hour as opposed to coming down here into the dungeon. I mean, we're gonna do everything we can.
It's a heck of a concept, all that communication going on.
Yeah.
It would be great.
It's gonna take all of it in order for this to work.
I think
mean, well, I wanna see this money spent well and spent for a reason, not just to get shot down on one vote. You know, that would be heartbreaking, you know. So, how else? You guys,
I'm an email guy.
You're an email guy? Great. Make sure those emails are on that piece of paper before you leave. We'll get together a mailing list. It'll be the same information that's available on the website. It'll be the same information that's being pushed in the papers. Anyone else? Smoke signals. You like those planes that tell you when the lobsters are on sale at ShopRite? I don't think we can afford that, but we're not selling lobsters here. Okay, well, I think what we'll do is we'll break up for the formal part of the evening. I didn't expect it to go this long, so I give you folks my thanks, and thanks to the commission for staying out so late. And we'll be around for a while to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you.